Good afternoon. Thank you for watching Thought to Action, presented by the London Center for Policy Research, where we delve deeply into important issues, examine ideas, and discuss solutions to put our thoughts into action. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, the president of the London Center for Policy Research, and I'm joined today by Ambassador Ric Grenell, the first gay member of the cabinet ever, and the most effective DNI. And Ric, I know this for a fact because I've known all the other DNIs. The most effective DNI, Director of National Intelligence we've ever had. So Ric, thank you for joining us today on Thought to Action.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'd like to get right into it to talk about some of the issues which you all were successful in dealing with and others are now trying to pick up. In particular, my friend and colleague, Congressman Rick Perry, has established some legislation called the Empower Our Girls Act, which basically is attempting to put into legislative action laws that protect women from female genital mutilation. And as we all know, that radical Islam seems to be more focused on control and essentially dehumanizing individuals who do not believe a very specific way. So I'd like to get your thoughts on what you thought was most effective about the Trump administration going after social issues to push back on radical Islam, and then talk more about what we can all do or what we all should do going forward.
Well, it's a great topic because I think many of these issues transcend just the Western culture, but they are Western values.
Right.
And we talk about that a lot at the UN. We talk about human rights. We talk about dignity. And we tend to do a lot of talking, but we don't put a lot of muscle behind it. And I think that was the difference with the Trump administration, is that what we tried to do was not just show up and give a speech in Geneva or give a speech at the UN and wag our finger or somehow create this language standard, because that's an easy out. I mean, I think so many people have pointed out, I spent 8 years at the UN, and I can tell you that if you're a human rights abuser, you run for the Human Rights Council. You get on and you protect yourself, and then you speak out and you do these big words and big speeches to say, human rights are important. But in practice, it always falls apart. And so what we've tried to do, whether it's on women's issues, bringing this mutilization, technique, this terrible idea of transferring some sort of radical idea into a physical attack on young girls' bodies. What we tried to do is point out and say, whatever your religious beliefs, this crosses the line. This
Right.
is absolutely wrong, and it shouldn't be done. To do this to young girls is inhumane, and you don't get to use the excuse that this is just your beliefs or this is
Right.
part of your religion. And I would say that the same thing, Tony, we did on decriminalization of homosexuality. What we tried
Exactly.
to do is really unite everybody into recognizing that, this is not about rainbow tables or pride parades. We're not asking to have a pride parade in Riyadh. But what we do think is basic, and we do think that it should be a bipartisan consensus and a Western values consensus, is that you shouldn't criminalize homosexuality. You shouldn't put somebody in jail, and God forbid, you certainly shouldn't kill them just simply for being gay. These are issues that are basic human rights, and you don't get to say, well, this is my religion, and so therefore I'm going to, mutilate a little girl, or I'm going to put gay people in prison or kill them.
So, yeah, and this is one of the things I've been most proud of regarding the work I've done behind the scenes regarding helping feed policy recommendations, is the fact that you Ric, and others took action. And I think that's what needs to be continued. You said very specifically, you would say something and you would do something. I think that's a necessary step to effective policymaking, is actually the activation component. This is one of the things that I find frustrating already, is that some of the folks that are now going to be put in charge, Secretary Blinken and others, seem to have had the record of virtue signaling, not taking action. And
Yeah,
I think
I
that,
agree. I mean, in Washington, though, Tony, as you know, this is the standard. If you can go
yeah,
up to a podium and you can just talk a big game, talking seems to be the goal. Meeting
yeah,
together seems to be the goal. And this is, I think, the real problem of consensus. Consensus sounds great, but consensus, if it's the goal, is a very dangerous concept, because then what it really means is that you just get together with a room full of people, say at the UN Security Council, and 15 countries get to come up with the lowest common denominator of what they believe. That
yeah.
means that other countries like Russia and China and a whole bunch of others at the Security Council get to veto what the American people think or the American government thinks is best for its people. So Joe Biden has a 40+ year history of wanting to be liked by the globalists, wanting words and meetings to be the goal. So for instance, with the Iran deal, having a meeting with the Europeans and Iran sitting at the table, they herald as a great thing. Now, make no mistake, I think engagement is very important, but engagement is a tactic. It's not the goal. And what you have to be able to do is quickly evaluate whether or not, if your goal is to deny Iran a nuclear weapon or to make America safer, you have to evaluate whether or not your tactics are working. And I would say that trying to spin that consensus with the Europeans is somehow a win does not get us to our goal of denying Iran a nuclear weapon. The Europeans want engagement with Iran because they want to sell Iran a whole bunch of products. They do not have the same threat from Iran that we do.
Oh, I understand. I'd like to talk more about that as we talk about the Abraham Accords in our next segment. But for now, thank you all for watching and listening to Thought to Action. If you like our program, please help us through joining us through Thought to Action on Patreon, and also subscribe to our social media outlets. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course through the LondonCenter.org. So thank you again for joining us today for this important discussion. I'm Tony Shaffer, and we'll see you again soon on Thought to Action.